Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to episode number 146 of Let's Go Racing. Tyler Jones, Davin Akanagan here with you. We are going to discuss all the top headlines you need to know in the sport heading into All-Star Weekend in North Wilkesboro, as Brad Keselowski has ended his 100-plus race winless streak. We'll talk about that. We'll look ahead to this weekend. So much going on and talk about a loaded news and notes to get to, from the media side of things to the charters and some potential sales going on. We'll discuss all of it, and we also have some silly season movement already underway as well. We'll also get to our mailbag segment coming up later, so stick around for that. Dominic, let's go ahead and just jump right in. Brad Keselowski getting that win. Been a long time coming, and twofold, right? Not only does he end that winless streak, but Ford also gets their first win of 2024 as well, as they were winless prior to that. Big day for Brad Keselowski. I know that he wasn't the best car, but sometimes you'd rather be lucky than good. He was in the right place at the right time with what happened there. At the end of the race with his teammate Chris Buescher, and how things went with him and Tyler Reddick and all that. But nonetheless, big deal for Brad to get that one, his first win as an owner driver there.
So you're telling me we can't make Brad Keselowski, Bill Elliott, Russell Wilson jokes anymore? This monkey's off his back. He's won a race now as a team owner / driver. But no, in all seriousness, 3 years, Tyler, to really think about that. Brad Keselowski's last win before this was at Talladega in 2021. That was a single win season, but those numbers really don't reflect how well he's run the last few years. And I know Ford having that drought too to begin 2024, drought no more. But the 16, the 17, Chris Buescher, Brad Keselowski, RFK Racing looking like the dominant Ford team of the Ford camp the first half of this regular season. And really nice to see Keselowski get that win. How fitting he does it on throwback weekend, kind of like a throwback to being one of the older guys now, one of the elder statesmen of the Cup Series.
Well, and Dom, like, getting that win, the first after a losing streak, is always the toughest. Now it kind of frees you up a bit, but as impressive as that was, and I'm not taking anything away from that, I still need to see more. Like, I'm not calling Brad a title contender until he can show that he can dominate, that he can win multiple races and not be in a situation like this one right here where he just kind of lucked into things. I understand he's running well, and they turned a corner after a rough start to the year, but the win was nice. Now they still have more work to do if they're going to be a championship contending team, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, there's still a little bit of work to do, and Ford certainly seems still a little bit behind. They feel like I don't know, Tyler. I feel like Ford seems to have qualifying figured out, but qualifying and race trim, as David could tell us, is a lot different, and getting your car set up on long run. And it looked like Keselowski had a better long run car at Darlington, but we had a lot of those cautions, so we didn't really get to see too much of that play out. But I think as we see that this All-Star break halfway through the regular season, we'll get more into that later. But then as you start working through the summer stretch, we'll really get a good gauge and a good idea of just how good Ford teams are and how good Brad Keselowski can be. Because we have seen him in this 6-car lead laps. Richmond last year is a good example. Texas in 2022, the Daytona 500. They've done it at a variety of racetracks, but it's this year. And I guess time will be our biggest telling factor here. How good can that 16 be?
Yeah, and how about his teammate Chris Buescher was in position to potentially win this race, was right up there with Tyler Reddick. And they had their little run in, of course, the week prior. He nearly won the race, was an inch away from getting there. Size matters, and came up just short with ultimately Kyle Larson getting the job done. I feel for Chris Buescher because that team's run so well. I mean, a couple things go different. We're talking about Chris Buescher winning back-to-back races here.
Certainly. And it makes you wonder too, Tyler. You hear about like how this is a momentum-driven sport and how good runs matter, winning wins, and that cures a lot of things. But I gotta wonder too, Tyler, and I'd be curious your thoughts on this. You finished second like you did to Kyle Larson. Certainly a run like that gives you momentum. You run up front at Darlington like how you did. And yeah, the results didn't go as planned, but when you have strong runs like that in a sport like this, does that give a team more momentum or is it more deflating? Is it more frustrating to have runs like that and not be able to close the deal? Because I feel like that could go either way. Where on one hand, yes, something like this could give a team that natural momentum, but on the same time, that frustration could be deflating.
I see where you're coming at, and I think both arguments are very sound, but I would lean towards the momentum side because they could have put their heads down this past week after coming an inch within winning that race before, and yet they almost won this week. They responded well. And the fact that his teammate pulled it off and won, like that shows strength within that organization here. I would imagine the vibes, the boss winning and everything are good at RFK Racing right now. They look like the best Ford team at the moment. I think it's only a matter of time before Chris Buescher gets in victory lane. And the other thing I would say, Dom, of why I would lean towards the momentum side of things is if you're Chris Buescher, you didn't do anything wrong the last 2 weeks. It's not like you did something to cost your team, or it's not like there was some big mistake on pit road where it was a self-inflicted wound thing. I mean, shit happens, right? You know, I mean, that was the case. I mean, that's where I feel like if you're confident, if you're this 17 team, is that you did nothing wrong.
Didn't do anything wrong. You're just wrong place, wrong time with some of these things, like letting Kyle Larson take the high line at Kansas. And look, man, you had a front row seat to that. So always cool to see that you've been a part of history or able to witness history. And then last week at Darlington, I got to say, too, he was a team player with about 17, 18, 19 laps to go, wherever it was when they were coming down, I believe the front stretch off into one. And he gave his teammate and his boss a huge shove when he was battling with Reddick for the lead. So Buescher was certainly trying to help his teammate. And I got to say, that power move, too, off of turn four, looked like he could have plowed into his boss, caused a huge wreck on the front.
Oh,
Man, what a gutsy move Chris Buescher had there for the lead with a few laps to go.
plowed into his boss. That's some interesting phrasing there, Dom.
Yeah, maybe a poor choice of words, but you knew what I was getting at.
Yeah, I couldn't let that one slide. But yes, a nice weekend for RFK. Darlington, one more quick note, Dom. Throwback weekend. I always love throwback weekend. I hate that Ty Gibbs and that 54 team was too good to take part in throwback weekend. But all the cool paint schemes, it's one of the best things I think NASCAR does all year. I wish they would choose pick an era of racing and all the teams embrace that, like do a different theme each year. But nonetheless, it's I think it's one of the best things NASCAR's done, and credit to Darlington for what they've done with this the last few years. And remember, they have this second race because they were willing to open up their doors during COVID when no one else would. And, they put on a great race, during COVID and everything. And since then, their fans have showed up. I mean, the people running the show at Darlington have done an incredible job all the way around the last few years.
Well, they sure have. It's a great facility. I've been there once in 2018 for throwback weekend out there. And I got to say, that vibe out there, they know how to do it right in Darlington, South Carolina. And touching on what you had said a little bit back too about doing these themes, they have tried these themes, but of course, you get the contrarians, you get the people that have to be different and not want to obey the themes. But I know you wouldn't have seen this because it was Saturday, but maybe during the race on Sunday, Kevin Harvick took a couple of jabs at Joe Gibbs Racing, saying that these other teams need to take notice and take a playbook move out of the Hendrick Motorsports camp. Because let's be honest, Hendrick, best in show, that 5-car winning best in show, no surprise there with the Terry Labonte throwback. Even the spin in turn 3, like a Terry Labonte spin, it was great to see the memes come out of that. But in all seriousness, I really do think what these teams, I know you got to make the sponsors happy. You got to have all these things in line, but Darlington's special, and it gives the team something to look forward to. Tyler, I pieced together a story last week, and I spoke to a few people: Biffle, Archie St. Hilaire, he's doing Go Fast Racing, Steve Carnes, who helps with sponsorship with Jeremy Clemens. I got a variety of people, and the theme I kept hearing was that these kind of things provide momentum for a team. They provide morale boosts, and because originally I'm going into the story thinking, okay, maybe I'm going to find out more about how the red tape works, the peek behind the curtain. But that stuff really wasn't the theme of the story. It was more of how it's a big morale boost for the teams. I got to imagine if you're somebody that works from Gibbs and you're looking around and all these other teams and all these other cars are participating. That's got to be getting in your head a little bit, I'd imagine, as a crew member level for sure. If you're working on the cars, everybody else is participating, but you aren't. Yeah,
Yeah, and I'm looking back at the paint schemes now. The Stewart-Haas teams also, I think, did not participate. If I'm correct on that.
Josh Berry
Uh,
did. They threw it back to Rodney Childers with the late model car that he ran back in the day.
okay, but looking at some others here, like let's see, did the 10 car ran the overstock scheme? The 41, okay, so maybe just the 10 car that didn't do a throwback. Oh, and did Joey Logano run a throwback on that 22?
I don't believe they did. And they've done that in the past where they've run it like a Steve Park kind of theme. They did, I think, a Mario Andretti car a couple of years ago. So they have participated, but they just didn't do it this year. Same as Team Blaney with the 12th team.
Yeah. All right. So NASCAR, if you're listening, here's what I need from Throwback Weekend of the Future. Let's choose a theme, and it's mandatory that everybody participates in the theme of that era. I'm putting rules down in my NASCAR dictatorship. This is how it's going to be. I'd like to see that going forward. All right, let's look into the All-Star race. First off, speaking of stuff getting off my chest, question for you: How many years have we been giving out $1 million in this All-Star race now?
Believe that dates back, if it's 2002, 2003, the year Jimmie Johnson won, I believe it was '02. It was the first year the winner claimed more than $1 million. I know what you're about to say, and I love this rant every year, Tyler.
Okay, we got record high inflation in this country, right? It's like 9% or something. How are we still only giving $1 million to the All-Star race weekend winner? Like, this thing should be $2 million by now. What in the hell? What are we doing only giving $1 million? And on the other flip side of that too, Dom, why should I care? Why should I care if a rich guy is going to win $1 million? Like, we'll talk about the in-season tournament later. Like, oh, they're going for $1 million. And what does that do for me? Why should I care if they're getting $1 million either way? Like that's my 2 cents every year when it comes to this All-Star race is one, inflation. These guys are getting paid too low. But two, why?
It's a valid point. It's a valid point. It's an all-star race. It's an exhibition race that really doesn't matter, but it's more clout. It's more the momentum it can provide a team. It certainly adds to a driver's legendary status if you can win an all-star race, kind of like a triple crown race, if you will. It's not Daytona, it's not Indy, it's not the Southern 500, but it's still the all-star race. So that is pretty special. There's a lot of, I think, a lot of teams and a lot of drivers do still put a lot of expectation into this race week, and they really still do care. And I think the money is part of the show, part of it. The aspect of throwing out $1 million, it's catchy. It catches your $1 million. Wow, one of these guys could go out and win $1 million. But you're right, a lot of these guys make so much more money than they know what to do with. $1 million maybe doesn't really matter too much in the grand scheme of things. The other thing too, and I will get on my soapbox here on this, when we talk about the driver getting $1 million. Well, let's be honest, Tyler, that money's paid out to the teams, but it just sounds so much more fancy that the driver wins $1 million. It's like this Dash for Cash deal. Is the driver really getting that $100,000 check? No, it's going to the team. It's going to be dispersed however the teams have predetermined to make those payments out to their driver, to their teams, to their organizations. It's the same with this. It's no other race weekend like where you would have a pay structure paid out. There's my soapbox. I'm getting off it.
I would like to see, all right, we're going to raise the stakes. We're going to, because of inflation, we're going to like $1.5, $2 million. And the check is guaranteed to the driver. Like, let's make that happen. Write the check directly to the driver, not to the team, for that money that we're giving out here. But we could go on about that all day. With that being said, North Wilkesboro, last year, I'll be honest, I loved everything about the race, the build-up, the setting. It felt like going in a time machine and all that. But we're going to here, the race itself wasn't that great. That racing surface was, they wanted to run on the old racing surface, but it didn't put on much of a show. These These stock cars didn't run so great on that. What's going to be different this time around, Dom?
Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. And the fact they have a repave, when you tend to see tracks get repaved, you don't see a lot of passing. You want that old worn down surface. And I know David could speak more to this, but you have more worn down racing, you're going to have drivers trying to search for a better line. And when you have a repave, you don't have a lot of different grooves. And again, David could speak more to that, but I feel like we didn't see a lot of passing per se last year. We're likely going to see less of that just based on that information, based on the science behind that. And selfishly, Tyler, we've seen how good this Gen 6 racing has just gotten better. It's like fine wine or cheese on the mile and a half. It's just been getting better and better and better as we go on. I kind of wish we were having a Texas All-Star race like we had the last few years.
Okay, don't go crazy now.
Uh,
That Texas All-Star race a couple years ago was such a debacle that Ryan Blaney won, the window net gate and all that. But North Wilkesboro, I like the idea. I'm just worried about the execution because last year I know people are going to remember Kyle Larson winning and his wife Caitlin shotgunning the beer and all that. Like that was cool and everything, but the race itself wasn't that great. So I'm a little skeptical. But going back to North Wilkesboro, Dom, I feel like that North Wilkesboro is not going away anytime soon. I don't know how much longer they host the All-Star race because I think NASCAR and SMI would like to rotate and move this thing around a bit. But I could imagine in the very near future a regular season cup race happening at North Wilkesboro in the very near future.
that would be really cool to see. And that hasn't happened since 1996. So something 30 years in the making. Maybe we see that next year, 2026. But I got to imagine, Tyler, if you're
2025 is next year.
or yeah, 2025, 2026, maybe in the next couple of years. Thank you. But I do have to wonder too, though, Tyler, if we're looking at the All-Star race and how much Marcus Smith and SMI have really put into this facility to revamp it and to bring it back to life and this revival. When you look at the race on Sunday night, what makes a successful race? Because we've seen close finishes this year. We have seen side-by-side racing. I mean, we're going in with the mentality we may not see a lot of side-by-side racing, but all that out the window, what check-marked boxes are we looking for to make this thing successful?
I'm just looking for an exciting race. I think from a business perspective, you want a sellout crowd and for people to attend not just the cup race, but all the other stuff going on. The cars tours running, you got the truck series, a couple different things. You want it to be a full-on successful weekend. They got stuff going all week. I love the pit crew challenge and all that. I think that's what would make it a success from a business side, but just a racing perspective, just put on a show. Like, let's see some passing, let's see some excitement.
Yeah, I think all that blends into it. And you can have a blend of all of that. I think we're going to have a really good race this weekend. But that repay, that tells me they're investing a lot into this facility. They see it being here for years to come. I don't know, man. I'm going three steps back to what you said, but I like that idea of having North Wilkesboro back on the regular season schedule. That'd be something pretty special.
Well, and if we're going to try to focus on the All-Star race being, a marquee event, if you will, right? I would think that, within the SMI family of tracks, sooner than later, I'll say this right now, I think that the Nashville Fairgrounds will be getting the All-Star race.
That would be really, really cool to see
I
that.
don't have any inside sources. I'm not reporting this, just pure speculation. If they pulled off North Wilkesboro like this and how quick they did, I think the Nashville Fairgrounds will be next.
Could be a possibility. And I know we had Bob Pockers of Fox Sports on our show last month, and he said it's just going to all depend on the board. There's so many things you have to be looking at. There's like a domino effect of things that have to happen. But I would love to see that. I feel like SMI is investing in all these different properties. You got to imagine there's going to have a fighting chance that the Nashville Fairgrounds gets back at some point.
Yeah. Now, last thing on the All-Star race, then we can move on because we got a ton of news and notes to get to. What does it mean to win the All-Star race? I feel like that this can really shift your momentum. If you've gotten off to a slow start to this year, even though it's an exhibition race, like this could be the spark your team needs. Or if you've been running well, this can be a statement that even on the exhibition races, you're still out there, you're competing, you're going all out. Like I I feel like this race, even though there's no points on the line or anything like that, still means a lot for these teams to put themselves on the right track.
It certainly does. And I'll answer your question with a story. You diehard fans might remember Roy Oliver, who was on our show about a year and a half ago. He worked with Jeff Bodine on the 1994 Exide Batteries team. And if you recall, that team was purchased by Bodine after the tragedy with Alan Kulwicki in 93. And I remember Roy, I can't remember if he said it on this show, but he has shared that that 94 year was so hit and miss. They were on the road a lot. They were testing. They had so many good runs foiled away by bad engines or tires that were getting hit or miss with the Hoosier thing. But they get to the All-Star race in May of that year, which was at Charlotte Motor Speedway. And they had a great race. It ended up coming down to the wire between Bodine and Ernie Irvin, Rusty Wallace, Ken Schrader. And Jeff ends up winning the race. It's their first win as an organization under the new Jeff Bodine leadership. But more importantly, it was one of those that kind of sewed up the wounds, if you will. Not saying you'll never repair the wounds of losing somebody like how they did with Alan Kulwicki, but it helped with the healing process, provided momentum. The team went on to win 3 more wins. And a more recent example, Tyler, and I don't have any connection to the team, but when Tony Stewart won the All-Star race under the rebranded Stewart-Haas Racing in 2009, he wins that race. And then he went on that rampage of winning 3 or 4 regular season races in 09. He won Pocono like 2 weeks after that All-Star race weekend. And that 14 team went on to win, or I don't think they crowned the regular season championship at that time, but was the points leader heading into the playoffs. So the momentum that you can get from the All-Star race is certainly very real. And those two happen to be owner-driver coincidences. But surely, Tyler, I can assure you that if you win the All-Star race, your team's going to have a lot more momentum. We've been talking about that a lot on the show today, but certainly it is true. It is very much alive.
Yeah, certainly so. Dom, let's go ahead and get to some headlines. We got so much to discuss. Where would you like to start?
We're going to start with media headlines. So we have a lot of media headlines heading into this weekend. The last time we sat down and chatted with you guys here on this show. So let's just start and just go rapid fire here. Jimmie Johnson joining the NBC Sports broadcasting booth starting in 2024. Tyler, he's pulling a double. He's going to be helping with the Indianapolis 500 television coverage and then flying to Charlotte and racing in the Coke 600. NASCAR Race Hub is going to be taken off the air after so many years on air with Fox Sports 1. Race Hub will have its last show there in the second week of June. Amazon
started on the Speed Channel, yeah.
Exactly, Speed Channel. So it's been around for a long time. We'll talk more on that. Amazon Prime will be getting the Coca-Cola 600 starting in 2025. And we know that's one of the marquee races for Fox. So we'll dive more into that. As well as, speaking of Amazon, a Dale Earnhardt Sr. 3-part series that's going to be debuting next year. Dale Earnhardt Jr. talking about that on his social media channels this week. He announced that on Tuesday, May 14th. Tyler, a lot of the media landscape, what do you think? What of all those headlines, which one maybe shocks you the most, or which one grabbed your attention?
I gotta say that the NASCAR Race Hub cancellation just really sucks. I love that show. I try to watch it when I can. I'm not home most nights by 6 o'clock Eastern, so I don't get to see it as much as I would like. But I thought Race Hub has done a really good job covering the sport. And, as somebody that works in the media, I follow everything closely, what's going on from shows to broadcasters, media negotiation rights, and all that. And this is a head scratcher for me because Race Hub is FS1's highest rated show. It beats out Undisputed with Skip Bayless by a lot. It beats out The Herd with Colin Cowherd. And all these shows, it gets nearly 200,000 viewers a night. Like, it does really well and has commanded that time slot well. And as I did some more digging, as it turns out that the NASCAR contract right now requires FS1 to air Race Hub every night at 6 p.m. Every night at 6 p.m. Eastern. The next TV contract does not require them to air Race Hub. And so with that in mind, it's a cost thing. Not everything in this business, Dom, is about ratings and how you're performing. Sometimes it comes down to the dollars, dollar signs. And this is an opportunity for Fox to cut costs. Somebody doesn't see value in it. It's unfortunate, but Race Hub's been a great show, I think, for a long time. A friend of ours, Adam Alexander, has done an incredible job hosting that show. Shannon Spake, another friend of mine, she's done great on there. Caitlin Vinci, Josh Sims, it's been appointment television. So I'm sad to see it go because, whether it was through Speed or FS1, that has been the go-to for NASCAR fans for 15 years now.
Certainly, certainly. And even you could make the argument that maybe the show became a little outdated, something I'd heard, but yeah, you have all these different ways and mediums to consume information. I don't know if it had anything to do with it, but I do. What was really striking to me, Tyler, I remember hearing that the people that work on the show, the people that are behind the scenes making it happen, the producers, people who are working in the video editing bays, all of that, they found out the day that it was announced that they were going to be going off the air. So they pretty much found out and didn't get that much of a heads up like anybody else. So I don't know if you have any of the numbers, but when you have an operation closed down like this, I mean, does Fox Sports move these people around? Were they exclusive to Race Hub? I mean, do you have any idea on how many numbers of people, families are going to be affected by this?
Well, a lot of those people were employed by NASCAR Productions, and NASCAR Productions is operating a brand new facility in Charlotte, where they produce, the second half of the Truck Series season for FS1. They're going to produce the CW races out of there. So a lot of these people are going to be leaving Fox and going to work for NASCAR. But I'm sure there's going to be some jobs lost, and some of your favorite on-air talent on FS1. I don't know what their future holds either, as far as that goes. So it's all unfortunate. I hate to see it go this way, but nature of the business sometimes. And hopefully we see Prime Video and TNT kind of pick up the slack, if you will, for what was lost. Some of the other things we mentioned there, Jimmie Johnson. I was a little surprised by this news, Dom, real quick, because he's had plenty of opportunities to be a guest analyst on Fox the last few years when they had that empty seat in the booth after Jeff Gordon left for Kevin Harvick arrived. I'm surprised that just now Jimmie took a TV deal and not with Fox either, with NBC here.
So you being the media guy, knowing a lot more of the ins and outs on the landscape, when you look at that on the surface, does that seem like there's more to the story? Maybe Jimmie didn't want to work with Fox, or is it just odd and coincidental how the timing worked out that maybe it was a better fit to go with NBC Sports? Your thoughts on that?
It may have been a money thing. He may have said that he felt he was worth a certain cost and Fox didn't want to pay that or something. Maybe somebody at Fox didn't think that he was that great of an on-air talent there because, the knock on Jimmie for years has been he's too boring. Maybe somebody felt that way. There's a number of factors that could be involved, but I'm intrigued on NBC's side of things, Dom. They needed to make a splash of sorts with losing Dale Jr. here.
And here you go. You have a seven-time NASCAR champion. You can argue all day who the greatest NASCAR seven-time champion is in the history of the sport, but Johnson's certainly in that category. That's a big shoe to fill with Dale Earnhardt Jr. leaving. I feel like they have done a good job with whoever was going to fill the spot of Dale Earnhardt Jr. needed to be those big shoe fillers.
But he's not really filling the spot, only doing 4 races when Jr. was all season. But
that is true.
Yeah. And one of those races is Indy. It's not even a NASCAR race. It's only 3 NASCAR races. So
kind of has that feel of like when they would have Mike Tirico going to do the Olympics, the Indianapolis 500. You bring in like a marquee guy, kind of like that.
Like Chris Paul, the NBA player, is going to work the NBA playoffs for ESPN. Like we see these guest analyst things all the time. Prime Video, certainly excited for them. To get the Coke 600, I'm a little surprised to see it leave network TV, but I'm not concerned about it going to Prime Video. They'll promote the hell out of it. They'll still get a good audience. It's the only thing that's going to be going on that night, and people are still going to be looking for more racing to watch after the Indy 500. I don't think it's a big concern. But hearing this Earnhardt documentary and all that, I think Prime Video is going to be huge in the growth of the sport in this next chapter. And they got a ton of money. They're about to get the NBA. They got the WNBA. They got Thursday Night Football, of course. It's good to be in the pockets of Amazon, Dom, who's got more money than anybody.
Oh, absolutely. When you can pull Dale Earnhardt Jr. from NBC, that's very telling. I don't know what Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s contract was set up with NBC, but he was getting paid a pretty penny to be able to pull him doing all this cool stuff with NASCAR activation. We were talking off air after the show last time, and I think it's worth bringing in here about like how during that Friday game, the Black Friday football game that Amazon Prime had and all the activation around it. You got to imagine the NASCAR races are going to be like that. And Tyler, you had some good insight there too. Maybe we'll have less commercials. We'll have the opportunity to go kick it back to the studio during the race or side by side stuff. I feel like there's going to be some really interesting things that come out of this NASCAR coverage with Prime.
I would guess, again, no reporting, just straight speculation. Amazon is going to have less commercials than any NASCAR broadcaster out there, and it is going to change the game a bit. They're going to do things their way, and you're going to like what you see with their product. They're going to go all out. Did we hit everything in the media front? I know that was a lot.
We touched on it at the top. We can talk a little bit more. I'm curious what you think would be in that Dale Earnhardt Sr. 3-part documentary, because we know we've seen some really good movies come out of the man, the Intimidator, but like you said, Amazon's going to do it their way. I'm very curious.
That movie 3 on ESPN several years ago was awful.
Oh, I loved it, man. I know it wasn't accurate, but it was
so cheesy. It was so poorly done.
Barry Pepper did an all right job. And Chad McCumbee playing Dale Earnhardt.
No, we didn't. That movie sucked.
Right. I think they got more credit than what they deserve, than they don't deserve. So I think they did a better job.
That movie would never even came close to winning any type of major award. That movie sucked.
I know Richard Childress ended up suing because of the stylized 3 being used, and that's a whole conversation in itself. But no, I think that movie doesn't get the credit it deserves. I know it was kind of rushed. It came out in 2004, just 3 years after.
Yeah, it came out with the timing of ESPN's contract with NASCAR.
But one of those A for effort kind of things. It was entertaining.
I'm excited. I think we saw the Netflix NASCAR series was a big success. Now doing something on the Earnhardts. That's one thing too. Amazon's going to have to win over fans, right? Well, best way to win over fans is go for the biggest name and the most popular 2 drivers in the history of the sport, Dale Sr. and Dale Earnhardt Jr. I think that's a great way to try to win people over and win subscribers to your product.
And the other thing too that I'm thinking of here too, I mean, again, thinking out loud, no reporting here, but we know in the past, Dirty Mo Media was aligned with NBC Sports, and Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s podcast was on there too. I gotta imagine there's probably something in the works there with Amazon Prime and Dirty Mo Media. If there isn't already, I feel like
Dirty Mo Media is also going to work with TNT Sports. They also have their own docuseries content they're working on as well.
Oh wow, okay. So there's a lot of big things in the works here.
Yes, certainly. All right, what else we got?
A lot of big things in the works too. A lot of silly season moves. Well, let's start there. So we know usually July and August is about the time we start talking about the next year. Michael McDowell dropping the bombshell earlier this month that he will be leaving his home, his NASCAR home of 7 years at Front Row Motorsports. Michael McDowell will be joining the number 71 team at Spire Motorsports in 2025 in a multi-year deal, and held a press conference last week with Spire Motorsports. Tyler, certainly some big moves going on there. We know Zane Smith and the 71 team, that will not be a thing next year. He's signed with Trackhouse Racing. They're going to have to try to figure that out. But then you start getting into the question of colleague racing, and then Stewart-Haas Racing and the potential sale with there. So we're kind of going rapid fire with some of these teams here as well. But I feel like you can't just cover the McDowell thing without covering all these other pieces. I feel like there's a lot to be unraveled here, and we will see this unfold.
Let's start with McDowell first. Let's start with McDowell first. He's been so loyal to Front Row, and he's done a ton for that organization. He's been the face of that organization and has done an incredible job the last several seasons, winning the Daytona 500, getting in the playoff multiple times and all that. I was surprised. I wasn't shocked that he left. I was surprised who he left for, because Spire, as of right now anyway, isn't any better than Front Row. In fact, probably not as good as Front Row, if we're going to be honest. I always thought that if he were to leave, he would leave for a better team. So that surprised me. That kind of tells me, Dom, that Spire is going to continue to invest and put dollars in the right direction. We've seen Carson Hocevar race for rookie this year. We know Corey LaJoie is not a bad driver. Zane Smith obviously is there just on a rental deal, with the Trackhouse team. But to me, that says a lot about the direction of Spire Motorsports more than anything here, because Michael McDowell, as far as we know, had no reason to be leaving front row unless there's something good going on at Spire here.
A lot of greener pastures he must see that we don't see just quite yet. But I know he did say in that availability, the big thing for him, and he had been year to year at Front Row Motorsports. Front Row Motorsports tends to sign their drivers to 1 year type of deal, structured type things. And this was a multi-year deal that he's going to have with Spire Motorsports. I've said it on the show before too, Tyler. I don't know. I mean, every team's trajectory is going to be different, but what Spire's doing and the investment they're making in the sport, it gives me those vibes of furniture racing. That example of that small team that just continued to invest and just got a little better every year till they were championship contenders. Now, will Spire be a championship contender tomorrow? Next year, probably not. But the investments that the team is making, they keep getting a little better. They're gradual steps in the right direction. Maybe McDowell sees that.
Maybe so. Maybe so. But certainly excited for him, and wish him the best of luck there at Spire Motorsports. Meanwhile, some potential charter sales. Stewart-Haas Racing, we've heard the rumblings for a long time now that they've been in some big trouble trying to find sponsorship dollars. They didn't really come up with a great driver lineup this year. And now we got more rumors on Stewart-Haas Racing. What's going on there, Dom?
Adam Stern was the first to report with the Sports Business Journal that the team is actually sending out proposals to potential buyers to take the entire organization. We're talking buildings, charters, you name it. Potential exit plan of Stewart-Haas Racing at the end of the season. Now, the other thing too, Tyler, we don't have a charter deal quite yet. And NASCAR said there will be a charter deal, some sort of deal in place for the next TV contract. Not a permanent thing, but a semi-permanent kind of thing. So you got to imagine that adds value there as well. But let's say they even sell off just a couple of charters. You have interested buyers like Trackhouse, certainly. I mean, they have their 3. Maybe they go to 4. RFK Racing has said they would do something like that in the right situation. Front Row Motorsports, possibly. Maybe some other outside buyer we're not aware of right now. But I feel like this opens up a big, big can of what's going to happen.
Yeah, we heard Dale Jr. say a couple of weeks ago he feels like he missed his window on the charter system. He says he can't afford to buy a charter right now. Maybe somebody wants to bring Dale Jr. in as a partner, potentially. That could be a possibility. I know we've heard the Andretti name mentioned, that they want to get NASCAR, and they just got shut out of the F1 situation. So sounds like they have kind of a connection with Spire that's been going on there. But nonetheless, I'll say this. What a fall for Stewart-Haas Racing. I mean, this team, they got things going real quick when Tony Stewart came in as the co-owner of that team, started winning races immediately, won a championship. Kevin Harvick won a championship. But they've been just so mismanaged. They've made mistake after mistake the last several years. We've had questions about how much Tony's really invested. He's doing all these other things and such, and let his team kind of go to the wayside, whatever. Gene Haas, of course, got his F1 operation and all that, which isn't doing so hot either. And then the sponsorship issues, losing, the sponsors they lost from Bush to Hunt Brothers to all these big companies of the last few years. That's got to hurt. That catches up with you. I'm sad because Stewart-Haas Racing, Dom, like I thought was an incredible story, and I love seeing Tony as an owner in this sport. I hate to see this team that was once a great team, the way they've fallen off, just continue by the wayside, potentially closing doors here. At least the saving grace, though, in the past in these situations, Dom, teams like in Stewart-Haas' situation would just shut down and be over with. Now with the charter system in place, it's still going to be healthy. There's still going to be a good resolution. Something good will come out of this for NASCAR and for the teams. It's just unfortunate it comes at the expense of Stewart-Haas.
Yeah, certainly those misfortunes will be somebody else's gain or pleasure. And Gene Haas, I think back to, like you, they had the 2009 merger, Tony Stewart, Gene Haas, they come together and make SHR. But Gene Haas had been a team owner for years and years before. So unlike somebody like a Junior Johnson or a Bud Moore or a Junie Donlevy, all these guys that spent years and years in the sport and just had to sell their teams pennies on the dollar for equipment. Gene Haas will recoup some of that investment back. Now, we're talking a guy that owns Haas Automation, has a lot of money already. But I mean, the fact that if you're going to run a successful business, you want to get that return on your investment. And if they ultimately end up selling, Gene Haas won't walk away empty handed.
Yeah, and he spent a lot of his own money to sponsor his own cars over the years. So that's got to, lose a lot as well. As far as the future teams go, Dom, we have some teams that are very much just, chomping at the bit to expand. Trackhouse being one of them. We mentioned Front Row's possibility. We know 2311 wants to expand. Roush wants to expand here. We saw the last charter that got sold from the Live Fast team for $40 million. We could have a bidding war in our hands potentially here with multiple charters on the line here. I mean, let's say they get this new charter agreement in place and these charters go up for sale. It would not shock me one bit if we're talking about charters now with a deal in place, if this deal gets done, obviously, if Stewart-Haas ends up selling these charters for over $100 million apiece potentially.
I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility because I don't even think these are inflated values because especially if you're going to get more on this next TV deal and the teams get paid out more based on those charter structures, you're darn right. You're going to recoup your investment just like that, especially if you have sponsorship and you're getting a consistent flow of income, a good cash flow coming from your race winnings every week. It's a no-brainer, man. As time goes on, I think we're going to see, this is just my opinion, but I think we're going to see that it'll look like BJ McLeod was left holding the bag because selling at $40 million, that's going to be like a pennies on the dollar deal years from now, the way this thing's going.
Yeah, and you think about it too, Dom. Just the fight for these spots here. Like Ford is probably going to say to themselves, we got to protect our car numbers of the amount of cars that went out there. Are we going to help out Front Row? Are we going to help out RFK? Or there's teams like Trackhouse that want to expand, and then they call up Chevy, and Chevy's saying, yeah, let's jump at the bit of trying to expand and get the money behind you here. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes potentially here
that we're all unaware of, or all these conversations that are going on that we have no idea are going on. And you look what it's doing. It's potentially creating healthier competition. You want competition. You want the best of the best. And in a situation like this, with the charter situation, with manufacturers investing more potentially, only good that's going to come out of it is better racing, better product. Who wins at the end of the day? The fans.
One more point, Dom, and then we can move on from this. I would say, we mentioned the Andretti's getting rejected by F1, and that sucked for them. That was terrible. But I think the end goal for NASCAR is to be in that position to turn away. I'm not saying that they need to be assholes like F1 was to Andretti and all that, but in a position where they're evaluating, should we take this team in or not? Do they have the money to compete in this sport? Make this not where everybody can just show up and run, but make this a business where you got to spend to win, essentially.
And seeing, like, for me as the old fan of yesteryear and seeing where 20, 30 years ago, anybody could get a hold of the NASCAR rulebook in theory and build a car and bring it to the track, those days are over. And I feel like you're pushing away maybe some of that yesteryear nostalgia. And maybe it's a nostalgia thing coming from me on this, but the fact that, yeah, we do have 4 open spots every week, they're not showing up because they're not getting any payouts. NASCAR's kind of pushed those teams out to begin with. So you only see open teams coming in for select races or special events, like we see with RCR, with the Legacy Motor Club, NBC Motorsports here or there. But
and those teams get enough sponsors, they're making money. It's worth it for them.
Yeah, they have to be making that sponsorship money to make it worth it to go to the track in those situations because they're not getting a dime. I mean, they might be eligible for contingency awards, but that's about it. So I see where you're coming from. And yes, you don't want to let just anybody in, but it's kind of on the other side, like, well, NASCAR had pretty much been like that for its history. Is it right? Is it wrong? I don't know, but it feels odd because it feels like maybe we are pushing away some of those independent things that we would have.
Yeah, I feel like that's the direction this is going. That's the end goal for NASCAR, is to do what F1's doing there. And then we got a couple more things here. The in-season tournament. We've seen Denny Hamlin push for this type of thing for a long time. He's got his bracket challenge thing going. Now it's actually going to happen, and it's going to be on TNT next year. Don, what can you tell us about it?
5 races, 32 drivers, elimination, single style elimination, every race as it goes on. That's going to be pretty cool. But goes back to that $1 million. Maybe could have been $2 million. That's not for us to decide. That's above our pay grade. But yeah, it's going to be really cool to see this elimination style thing go. Plus, tying it in with the TV partners, making it a little extra special for TNT. It's something additional to look forward to during the regular season and not just have during the playoffs. And this is pretty cool. This is unique, kind of like what we had with the No Bull, the Winston No Bull 500, all that sort of thing, where a driver would win $1 million. We haven't seen a program like this in the Cup Series since 2002. Like we've seen the Truck Challenge, we had seen the Dash for Cash in Xfinity. We have something in Cup now for the first time in over 20 years.
Yeah, and it's big. I think it's big for TNT that they get to say we are the exclusive broadcast partner of the in-season tournament. It's a made-for-TV thing. Hopefully, it draws more eyeballs, more interest. I'll say this: like, you win the in-season tournament, I don't think that changes momentum. I don't think all of a sudden you're like, wow, I feel great going in the playoff because I won the in-season tournament. I mean, just because you won the in-season tournament doesn't mean that you're not going to wreck at Darlington and find yourself on the outside looking in the middle of the playoffs here. I mean, that doesn't change things. I mean, we won't look at winning an in-season tournament like winning a championship or a Daytona 500, but it'll be a cool thing. It'll be cool for us to talk about at least something for the summer months while we're in the middle of the regular season anyway. It's made for TV is what it is. I don't hate it, but I'm not going to go berserk over it either.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those little bullet list points you get to, oh, hey, that driver, he won the in-season tournament and went head to head with so and so, or these drivers made it so far, whatever. They're good talking points as the years go on.
Last thing on that, could you see this type of bracket format determine a champion down the road? I don't think so. I know if it goes well, people are going to talk about that. I would be surprised if this ever turned into the championship format.
I don't see it being the championship format. Never say never, because NASCAR is known to try new things and they'll go out of the box. But what I could see, Tyler, is maybe a situation where the regular or the in-season champion gets some sort of not only the $1 million prize, but you earn 5 playoff points or 10 playoff points, or the top four get like it's like a tapered off value amount where maybe you earn some playoff points or you earn regular season points in the point standings. There could be something tied with that maybe down the road if this
I
is
think it will be that way.
yeah, absolutely. You win the in-season tournament, boom, there's 5 playoff points or 10 playoff points, equivalent of winning 2 races or one race or however they want to do that. Because they already do award the regular season championship with 15 points entering the playoffs, the equivalent of winning 3 races. So maybe you make it tied to that. 5 points, 7 points. You award the top four. However, NASCAR can get as creative as they want with something like that. But I could see that being tied to not only money, but points down the road.
By the way, in Denny Hamlin's bracket challenge last year, yours truly picked William Byron to win it. He won it. So I will definitely be filling out a bracket and doing this like I'm sure all you will be with this in-season tournament next year.
And I feel like too, we're going to see people betting on this. You see a lot of odds and spreads. This is totally going to be something that you can go put on a sports book too, on top of what you can already do with NASCAR.
Absolutely. All right. What are odds looking like for North Wilkesboro this week? Who's your pick, Dom?
So let's break down the odds first. The NASCAR All-Star Race, odds-on favorite opening, courtesy of the racingexperts.com and Jonathan Field and his reporting. Denny Hamlin at 5.5 to 1 is your All-Star Race odds-on favorite. William Byron at 6 to 1. Christopher Bell at 7.5 to 1. Last year's winner and the 2022 All-Star Race winner both coming in at 9 to 1 apiece alongside Joey Logano. Martin Truex and Chase Elliott at 10 to 1. And some of your long shots here, Tyler, include Michael McDowell, 80 to 1. AJ Allmendinger, 150 to 1. Ricky Stenhouse at 300 to 1. So, in other words, you bet $5 on Ricky Stenhouse, you're going to cash out $1,500.
I would be surprised to see Kyle Larson come from the back and win without any practice and qualifying and all that because he's going to be doing stuff in Indy this weekend. Under normal circumstances, I'd probably pick Kyle. But Dom, I'm thinking this is Denny Hamlin's time. I'm going. It's Denny time. Uh, he wins in the PJs and everything. I'm leaning towards Denny. Who you got?
Denny Hamlin's a solid pick, and he's won the All-Star race. He won in 15 at Charlotte. I got to go William Byron, though. They're sitting at 6-1. William Byron, short tracks, when they start up front, tends to have it figured out. Pit crew fires off on all cylinders, like we saw at Martinsville more than once this year, 2022. I feel like this will lend into William Byron's driving style. Byron gets his first All-Star win.
There you have it. All right. Mailbag time. Let's answer some questions in our mailbag this week. As when Dom and I just hold things down, this is our chance to catch up and ask each other what's been on our minds, what we've really wanted to know about each other. But in normal circumstances, you can email us, davidstarpodcast@gmail.com. Also check us out on Facebook at Star Podcast, on X as well. You can find us there. So, Dom, the floor is yours. What would you like to ask me? Put me in the hot seat, if you will.
Put you in the hot seat. Okay. All right. So I did think about this, and I thought this would be a fun one to ask you. You being the sports guy that you are, and not only do you cover NASCAR and the NFL and all these other sports, you've been around a lot. So you've seen a lot of cool things, but we all know the roast of Tom Brady was awesome to watch a couple of weeks ago there on Netflix. So let's have a little fun with this. Tyler, you get approached about doing some sort of the roast of Tyler Jones, the roast of the summer of Jones, whatever we want to call it. We don't call it that because I might get canceled. But the roast of Tyler Jones, who do you have on your panel and what jokes are off limits? And who do you want hosting? Who do you want hosting? Who do you want on your panel and what jokes are off limits?
Man, I loved the roast of Tom Brady, by the way. That was fantastic. I just watched the whole thing the other night. If you haven't seen it, you need to. The roast of Tyler Jones. I would say, like, leave my family off limits. You know, they didn't ask for this. Don't even make jokes about my mom or dad or sister, you know, like, leave them out. Everything else is open game, though. Everything else beyond my family, like, go for it as far as I'm concerned. I got to invite Nikki Glaser to be involved. She was phenomenal. I've been a big fan of hers for a long time. She went to KU and everything. I would have her involved. I think Dave Portnoy would good. I thought he should have been involved in that with his boy Tom Brady there. I'd have to have you and David up there, and you probably have a lot of material you could work with over the years.
Oh boy, yes.
Let's see. We're not inviting John Haverland because nobody invites John.
No.
John would be great to roast, though. There would be a lot to work with John. Feld, I think, would be too nice. He doesn't have like a mean bone in his body, so I think I would have Feld in attendance, but I don't think he would be a good roaster. My buddy Thomas Bridges, who, if you listen to the Jones Report, is on there with me each and every week. He and Coach Bo, they'd have to be involved for sure. They know me so well, and my good and bad sides, so they'd have to be involved. Let's see. Trying to think. Funny people I really like as well that I think could be interesting. Man, let's see. I think Terry Bradshaw would be interesting. Let's see. I would also throw out there, if I'm talking comedians, I love John Crist. He's a friend of mine, if you will. I've gotten to know him through the NASCAR scene. Big Corey LaJoie fan. I'd probably have him host.
Not Adam Alexander.
Adam Alexander, he's sneaky funny, but I don't know like if he's roast funny. Adam would be, he would be in attendance for sure. But yeah, those are kind of the people that come to mind. Dom, how about you? Who would be hosting your roast and who would be roasting you?
Gosh, good questions. I think I echo that same sentiment. Family didn't ask for it. Leave them out of it, but take as many shots as you want as me. I'll probably laugh alongside you. Tyler, I got to have you on that panel. You've seen me at the highest of highs, the lowest of lows. So I'm sure you could work with that. David would have to be up there. I'd have to put Jeff Bodine up there as well. Jeff's got that witty sense of humor, sometimes that dry sense of humor that just really sticks and makes the room laugh. So you got to have that up there. As far as comedians, Adam Sandler. I've been told when I have my hair cut, I can look like a Walmart version of Adam Sandler. So I got to have him up there. I think that'd be really cool to have Adam up there roasting the hell out of
The
me.
Walmart Mexican version of Adam Sandler.
There you go. There you go. See that the jokes just write themselves. And man, I think Nikki Glaser was awesome. I'd never heard of her until the roast of Tom Brady. In fact, we were watching some of her stand-up comedy and really got to appreciate who she is. I'd love to have her up there roasted me. And as far as hosting, Tyler, gosh, I'd have to get back to you on that one. So yeah, those would probably be on my short list of people, probably people that I've interacted with here locally and I've gotten over the years and people on the NASCAR circuit as well. Probably a little blend of everybody I think would make it really worthwhile.
Yeah. A roast of Dominic would be hilarious. If we did a roast of David, I know for us, we said family would be off limits. His wife, Kim, would be demanding that she get to roast him.
Oh, absolutely. I think she'd have a fun time with that. We got to have Randy Moss up there. Speaking of people who were on Tom Brady's panel, they brought up the NASCAR stuff, the Netflix stuff. I was really hoping they'd bring up David's name. Didn't happen, but you got to have his former boss, Randy Moss, up there on that panel.
Yeah, I think Carl would be funny.
Oh, Carl would have a great field day with David. I'd be there for it.
Yeah. Our buddy Matt Jennings would have to be up there.
I would agree with that. Absolutely. Yes. And Chris Lafferty, I think Chris would have a great time with David.
Oh, he'd be kissing his ass so much, it'd be great. Yeah, definitely had to have Lafferty involved. Yeah, that you know what? Here's a podcast idea. Let's talk to David about this. Maybe this would be an off-season show. Let's get some of David's favorite people together and have the roast of David Starr here on Let's Go Racing.
Oh, that'd be great. Oh, you know who'd be great too, because he spends a lot of time with him, Mark Tate.
Yes.
You know, there'd be some good stuff going back and forth. Mark Tate with T-Top Manufacturing, one of David's longtime sponsors. That'd be a really, really good roast partner right there.
Okay. All right. We got a little bit of time left. So what else is on your mind?
That's all I got. Let's flip it on the other side of that. What's a burning question you have for me that you've just never asked or want to know?
All right. I'm very curious, Dom. What's your opinion on pet names? Not animal pet names, but pet names for a significant other. When is the right time to give out pet names, and what are some of your favorites? What are some acceptable ones?
Ooh, okay. Well, before I answer that, so when you're talking about like acceptable, like are we talking when you're with a spouse or like in the dating stage?
Yeah, like, with a significant other. Yes.
Okay, okay. So we'll call it that. So yeah, I think maybe it's one of those things where communication's good, where if maybe one's not on board with the name, you kind of just have to kind of figure out what you like, what you don't like. And I think just go from there. Like for me and my wife, we don't really have pet names for each other. Like you won't hear us calling each other babe or hunter or anything like that. But one thing, and it kind of just mirrored off each other. A few weeks before we got married, I told Felicia, said, in a few weeks, you're going to be my wifey. And then she said, well, you're going to be my husband. And those two just kind of stuck. So she's even in my phone as wifey. I'm in her phone as husband. So that's how I answer the phone. That's how we address each other, if you will. More so that than names. And even in public, I don't.
Dominic and I, we have pet names for each other, but we'll keep that off the air.
Yeah, well, yeah, those that's for the After Hours podcast. That's for the Roast of David Starr.
Yes, yes.
So I would say that I think number one, you got to make sure you're comfortable with each other and just I think that's one of those things where communication.
Dominic and I, we're in a domestic partnership and very comfortable with each other.
That I believe that's called an LLC. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. How about you, Tyler? What names are acceptable? What maybe names that are off limits or whatever? Kind of like how we're talking on the roast. How do you? What's your take on it?
So this is funny. It's a funny story. I haven't told too many people this, but the only people in my adult life that call me Ty, for whatever reason, have always been attractive females. So time and time again, whether they were just a friend or whether they're a significant other, if I get called Ty, it's always been by an attractive female. And so like when I hear that for the first time, I perk up a bit, like there it is, right there, and uh it's so funny, like when when I hear it from an attractive girl I'm interested in, or just an attractive girl that happens to be, a friend, or maybe even somebody I'm doing like a podcast interview with, whatever. I'm like, oh, okay, we're on that level now, huh? Like that to me is that's my personal favorite as far as the ladies go. If I get called Ty, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, there we go. We're going there then.
So what if David and I call you Ty?
I would be very disappointed.
Oh, okay, okay. And just for the record, David does not like to be called Dave. Don't call him Dave.
No, he does not like to be called Dave. Yes, can't confirm that. Which is wild to me. Like I've always thought David and Dave were interchangeable, but not for him.
So don't do that with Starr. No, no.
No. But yeah, that's too funny. Dom, what do you got going on this weekend, man?
This weekend I'll be staying at home with the family and be filling in at the NBC affiliate that I work at in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Be working there for a little bit on the weekend, and of course helping our team with the NASCAR coverage, the All-Star Race weekend. We don't have anybody at the track this weekend for us, Tyler, but we'll be doing all that remote. And yeah, just trying to take it easy here before it gets really hot and warms up. And before we know it, the summer is going to be over, but we know there's going to be a Summer of Jones tour. What can you tell us about that? How's the how planning out?
Summer Jones is still coming together. Got some good stuff in the works. Going to Phoenix for sure. Probably looking at Nashville, maybe a little Midwest venture of sorts. Still working some stuff out there. Summer Jones still a few weeks away. But I will be in Wichita, Kansas this weekend. I am working for Peacock. I'm going to be on the Cock.
Don't say that. No, no, no.
Too late. Already said it. I'll be on the Cock this weekend, calling some high school basketball, some the Puma Pro 16 League, the AAU league sponsored by Puma. A couple games there. So you got nothing going on Saturday afternoon, folks. Go check us out on the main NBC Sports channel on Peacock there for those games. And so I'll fly out Friday night, call the game Saturday, fly home Saturday night, just like that. So should be a lot of fun. Certainly looking forward to it and getting out to Wichita this weekend and all of that. So that's what's going on with me.
Have some fun on the call. On the call.
On the call, on the Cock. Yes. Yeah. Did it last week in Memphis. That was an adventure. Got stuck in the airport for 12 hours. Flew in the day of, home the same night. That was a first. A little nervous, a little nerve-wracking, but we made it work. So that's all I got going on. But should be a lot of fun. Certainly looking forward to it. As always, subscribe to Let's Go Racing with David Starr. New episodes out each and every week. Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review, or don't leave us one at all. Hit the like button. We certainly would appreciate it. Also follow us on social media, X at Starr Podcast, Facebook.com/Starr Podcast. And then you can email us, davidstarrpodcast@gmail.com. We'll put the checker flag out on this episode. For David Starr, I'm Tyler Jones. Thanks so long. It's been another edition of Let's Go Racing. We'll see you next week.